Hi, I'm Harriet Frew, eating disorder therapist, teacher and podcaster, and you're about to start healing from your eating disorder and transforming your life and your relationship with food and body. I've worked in NHS and private practice supporting clients for 20 years, and I believe that recovery is possible for you. This podcast dives into expert interviews, evidence-based psychological approaches, and anecdotal tips from the therapy room from my years of experience. If you're wanting to heal your relationship with food, feel confident in your body, develop self-love and self-acceptance, and create a life of freedom and meaning, then this podcast is for you. Thank you for being here.
Today I have a guest on the show and I'm talking to Sabrina Magnan, a food freedom and intuitive eating coach based in Montreal, Canada. She helps chronic dieters heal their relationship with food and their bodies and develop realistic and lasting health promoting habits. Sabrina has been on her own food healing journey through her battle with orthorexia, disordered eating, body dysmorphia and yo-yo dieting. Having experienced this for many years, she deeply understands what it's like to have your entire life revolve around food and your body. After discovering what actually works in recovery to stop feeling out of control around food and understanding the psychology of behaviour change, Sabrina now supports women all over the world to help them find true health free from obsession and guilt. And if you would like to hear Sabrina's story, she has been a previous guest on the podcast and the link is in the show notes. So in the episode today, Sabrina introduces us to a valuable tool that can be used in eating disorder recovery, in addition to making changes in other life areas. She is going to talk us through the Pyramid of Logical Levels by Robert Dilts, which is from NLP, Neuro-Linguistic Programming. In the discussion, Sabrina explains how we often get stuck with behavioural changes, not realising how our values, beliefs and identity can be significant barriers to change. Sabrina talks us through the model with incredible clarity and precision. So grab a pen and paper if you're not driving and you can construct your own pyramid and delve into change on a far deeper level whilst truly understanding your blocks. There's so much value packed in this episode. Sabrina talks through the model with such clarity and precision. You're really going to gain so much from it. I hope you enjoy it. Hi, Sabrina. Welcome back to the Eating Disorder Therapist podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. What a pleasure to be back.
Oh, well, it's good to have you here. And you were just sort of saying a bit about enjoying the autumn in Montreal. And do you want to just say a bit more about what it's like? Give us some Montreal vibes.
Oh my goodness. Fall in Montreal is amazing. We really have all the seasons here. We have a very cold winter. We have a quite hot summer. And summer is really busy here. There's a lot of festivals, like a lot of art and culture here in Montreal. I always say I should be a spokesperson for Montreal tourism because I really do love it in the summer. But I had a really, really busy summer, a lot of travel, a lot of events and weddings. And so I'm really looking forward to, I'm more of a homebody. I need to recharge on my social battery. So I'm excited. The leaves change here. There's some amazing hiking to do. So I'm really looking forward to having my layers, having my flannel, and just taking some time here in Montreal to calm things down.
Oh, amazing. Well, I think already a good advert. I'm sure some people would get the ticket. Amazing. Okay, so Sabrina, before we kind of launch in and to our topic of today, could you introduce yourself to the listeners, please?
Yes, absolutely. So I'm Sabrina Magnan. I'm a food freedom and intuitive eating coach. And similarly to you, I help women overcome disordered eating, binge eating, emotional eating, food obsession, so that they can free up their time, their mental space, their energy to focus on truly creating the life that they want and focusing on the things that matter most to them.
Yeah, no, amazing. And I know, Sabrina, you've been on the podcast before where you very much talked about your own healing journey and how you have sort of been on that journey from that point to where you are today. So I will definitely make sure I will kind of link that in the show notes, because I think that's kind of quite a lot of inspiration for people about what's possible, because it was quite a road, wasn't it?
Absolutely. Yes. Similar to a lot of people who do this work. My own personal story led me to be so passionate about helping people to be where I am now. So I think I do go into detail in the first episode I was on this podcast. So I we'll spare the redundancy, and I'm sure that you will link that in the show notes.
Yeah, I definitely will. I definitely will. I've got kind of like the memory of an Italian holiday and stuff like
Yes,
yeah.
exactly.
So yeah, anyone, if you want to hear Sabrina's healing story and kind of Italian vibes as well, in addition to the Montreal ones, the link will be in the show notes. Okay, so Sabrina, one of the things you're going to talk about today is about a tool that's used in neuro-linguistic programming, NLP, which is called the Pyramid of Logical Levels, and it's by a guy called Robert Dilts. Is that right? Yeah.
Yes.
So before we sort of talk about this kind of model, this tool that you use in therapy, could you tell us a little bit about NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, kind of what is it and how can it help people?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's a practice, it's a model that is used as a way of changing someone's thoughts and their behaviors to help them achieve their desired outcomes, to help them create lasting change, especially on a subconscious level. It's been used to reduce anxiety, improve overall well-being, and it uses a mixture of language, imagery, senses in order to tap into someone's subconscious mind and create like really rapid change. It's something that I use with my clients. It's something that my coaches used on me, and I never fully recognized the impact of it until I really started immersing myself in it and doing some exercises. And it really helps you tap into a different modality than talk therapy is extremely useful. But when you can tap into someone's internal world and the way that they see the world and the way they conceptualize it, it can create some really rapid change and growth in someone's mind.
And I guess this can be used for like all kinds of change, can't it? Like obviously we're going to be talking today more specifically around eating issues. I've just sort of thought about like, I don't know if you're doing a presentation or like gaining more confidence. Yes. Or yeah, it can be used in multiple ways. Yeah.
Absolutely. It can be used to tap into someone's past as well. It can be used in terms of energy work. Like there's so many different areas in your life that it can be used on. So that's a really great point.
Sure. Okay. So could you tell us a bit more about the pyramid of logical levels and what it is?
Yes. This came up because I was having a conversation with one of my newest clients inside of Food Freedom Academy last week. So it was her first time attending one of our coaching calls, and she's telling me about her past and what she's been struggling with. And this is a typical client who has a history of yo-yo dieting and constantly being on that weight loss hamster wheel. So having the approach to change that is very, tell me what to do. Tell me what rules I should follow. Tell me what behaviors I should implement. And also having this very all or nothing mentality when it comes to change. She's telling me like, I've been drinking my water and I've been trying to bring healthier foods into the house. And I just stopped her and I was like, okay, I know what's going on here. Let me guess that every time that you try to implement a new behavior, it's something that you do for a short period of time. And then before you know it, you fall back into your old patterns. She was like, yes. I took her through this pyramid of logical levels of change, which is a model of behavior change that you can find, like we said before, that you can implement in any area of your life. And most people don't actually know the model and know the approach to lasting behavior change. Because especially if you look at social media, it's a lot of like the highlight, the catchy hooks of do this and you're going to lose 10 pounds in 30 days. But actually, when it comes to change, and especially in the context of changing your relationship with food, changing the way that you feel, think, and behave around food, this can be applied as well. I'm going to try to visually describe it for anyone who is listening right now, but I know that you're going to share a link of the pyramid inside of your show notes as well. So if you're listening, and you can even draw this out, I'm a very visual person, the most bottom layer of change, which you can see is the less impactful and the most surface level, is your environment. Think of this as your physical reality. Anything that is happening outside of your body, or that is like, it could even be your body. So it's your physical environment. It can be where you live, the country that you have, your house, your relationships, your career, how much money you make, and your body, having a quote unquote fit body that you've wanted, or having a healthy body. So anything that you can see, that you can touch, that you can feel. And this is where most people want to see a change, right? They say, I want to make more money. I want to have a different job. I want to have a healthier body. And this is where people tend to focus. Now, this is the most bottom layer of change. You then have to ask yourself, well, in order to get a different outcome, what do you need to do? And that's where you get that next level, which is your behavior. In order to get something different, you need to do something different. Your behaviors encompass your actions, your reactions, your habits, your responses to certain triggers, your body language, the language that you use about the world, the language that you use for yourself, because those really matter. They are a behavior. This is where most people tend to finish. So tell me what to do. You tell me I need to drink more water. You tell me I need to go to the gym. You tell me I need to bring healthy foods into the house. I will do it. But it is only the second layer of 6 layers. A lot of people might be asking themselves like, okay, if I'm missing 4 of those layers, like it's starting to make sense why that change tends to be only temporary. So then we have to ask ourselves the question, how do you implement a new behavior? And the only way that you can exercise a new behavior is if you have the skills or the capabilities to do it. For example, if we're talking in the context of intuitive eating and healing your relationship with food, the skill of listening to your body, that is something that some people need to work on cultivating. If you're someone who is just focusing on, well, they told me to bring trigger foods into the house and to just eat them, and over time, I'm just not going to crave them anymore. Well, there's a lot of skills that you might not be focusing on. There's also the skill of emotional regulation, knowing how to regulate your nervous system when you're feeling strong emotional reactions so that you don't turn to food automatically every time. Inside of that skill level, you've got the hard skills. So those more technical skills, if we're talking in terms of jobs. And then you've got those soft skills. And that can be like being able to listen to your body and emotional regulation. What's tough about this level is that you don't always know what you don't know. Oftentimes, I know if I take myself back to when I first started my healing journey, I didn't know that I was lacking emotional regulation. I didn't know that I was disconnected from my body. This is when it can be really helpful to have a coach, a therapist, an outside perspective who lets you know on, okay, these are the things that are your blind spots. These are some skills and some capabilities that you might not know already. And even just the skill of behavior change, knowing how behaviors are changed over time, how to form new habits. That's something that I needed to learn. And once you learn that, behaviors become much easier to implement. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, definitely. Yeah. And I like the fact that you were sort of saying in a way, like you often don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
I think that's the thing, isn't it? I think because of social media and just the way we work as humans, we often think we just kind of have to muscle our way through it, don't we? With like sheer willpower and determination. So we get stuck on those bottom levels of the pyramid and then become very self-blaming, actually, but not realizing we're kind of missing a lot more.
Exactly. And then we get so mad at ourselves because we're like, I don't have enough willpower. And it's like, none of this is about willpower, because willpower, it's a conscious process. You decide, I'm going to say no to this. I'm going to say yes to this. It's a conscious process. But most of what we're talking about here, when it comes to beliefs, when it comes to emotions, when it comes to habits, those are all in your subconscious, and your conscious mind only makes up about 5 to 10% of your total mind. That means that 90 to 95% of your subconscious mind is driving your behaviors, your thoughts, your emotions on a daily basis. So willpower really has a lot of work to do if you're fighting against those subconscious processes that are happening. That's a really good point, is that a lot of this stuff, especially when it comes to this pyramid, is happening on a subconscious level. Now we've got our environment, which was the bottom layer, and then we've got our behaviors and our skills. And if you're moving up again, the next layer, the next level of change that you're going to find is your values and your beliefs. So in life, you do things that you see as important. So we hear this all the time, like, I don't have time for this, but we make time for things that we see as important. The values that you have, and not just the values that you say that you have, but the values that you truly have. Because I remember in my story, for the longest time, I always said that I valued freedom and travel and spontaneity and being able to go on adventures. And it was when I was faced with this opportunity to go to Italy and to actually fulfill on those values, I noticed that I was holding myself back because the value of what my body looks like and weight loss and comfort were really stronger in that moment. And it was realizing that if I want to live a life of alignment where I feel fulfilled, then I need to start taking actions that align with the values that I truly want to have. And I'm sure that you do this work with your clients as well, but I'll do this work with my clients where I'll have them uncover what they truly value, because sometimes we don't even know. We get so lost in what other people tell us that we should care about, what society tells us that we should care about, what our partners or our families. And so to actually get clear on what's important to me, what are my needs, that's a really important piece of it to help you create a life that is in alignment with who you are. That's where you get clear on what your values are. And once you know what your values are, then, okay, developing the right skills, the right behaviors, and then changing your environment become easier. But there is something that will get in the way of you being able to follow through on your values, and that is your limiting beliefs. If, for example, you have a belief that things are always hard for me, I can't possibly stick to anything, it's not possible for me to change, you could have all of these values, but you're going to keep getting in your own way subconsciously, because even if you have this desire for a life of freedom, this desire for travel or whatever it might be, but your beliefs are down here, then your beliefs will win every time. So this is where it's so important. And I was doing this work with my client of like, let's look at what's really going on the belief level. And what we uncovered is that her entire life, she had been donated these limiting beliefs by her family and her partners that she can't do anything and she's not good enough. And so, of course, when you go to approach change, you want to change your behaviors, you want to change your life, there's going to be that little voice in your head that's going to say, well, everything that you try to do, you fail. Everything that you try to do, you can't stick to. So it's just a matter of time before you fall back into it. So then either you're never going to start because you think, what's the point? Or you do start, and then the second that something goes quote unquote off track or you have an off day, you just think, oh, here I go again, falling right back into who I've always been. That's the level of your values and your beliefs. Is this all making sense so far?
Yeah, no, definitely. Yeah. I mean, I love it, actually. It's a great model. And can I just ask you as well, when the beliefs come up, because it's inevitable, isn't it? Like a lot of people with eating disorders, disordered eating, don't feel good enough, feel undeserving, unlovable, etc. How do you really support them to begin to kind of program their unconscious to start to really embody those kind of new beliefs?
Yeah, so there's different processes that I use. There's one that I really like doing is I like to tap into when is the first time that you started, and this uses NLP processes, is if you were to ask your subconscious mind, when is the earliest memory in your life that you can remember starting to think that? Starting to think that you weren't enough, starting to think that you're not worthy. And what we'll often find is that it's in our childhood when we were 6, 7 years old. When we can kind of uncover where that comes from, then we can start challenging those thoughts from an adult perspective, because oftentimes we carry these beliefs from this child perspective who's just trying to make sense of the world. So what I sometimes like to do is I like to go back to that version and I like to ask that person, that 6-year-old version of you, can you find any other interpretation of this event? Sometimes it was like, okay, well, my parents were fighting, and then I created this meaning that I'm the reason, that I'm a burden. And so when you can go back and see, because we are meaning-making machines, and you can go back and see, well, is there any other interpretations that I can make of that event? Oh, well, yeah, my parents were just extremely unhappy. They got married and they weren't even happy. And then maybe like they didn't want to have kids. And this had nothing to do with me. So that's where you can do some inner child healing, which I really like doing. But there's also another way that you can do it without going into your past, which is, okay, let's look at your belief that you are not successful. Let's challenge that. Is it true 100% of the time, without nuance, that you are not a successful person? And most people will be like, well, no, I guess it's not true 100% of the time. And then you start to poke holes in it. In what ways in your life are you successful? And then what's interesting, I actually did this exercise with my clients last night, and they went on and they wrote this like long list of all the ways that they've been successful. But the thing is that your brain, there's like this guardian of your mind that is going to want to hold on to your perception, your model of the world. So if you think that you are not successful, what's going to happen is any event, any experience where you are a success, your brain is either going to delete, it's going to distort, it's going to move out of your awareness, so that you just start paying attention to all the ways that you aren't successful. So at the end of the day, you look at all the things that you did that you fell short on or that you didn't even do. What you have to do is you actually have to put mental energy into a new model of the world, which is I am successful, and I'm going to start looking for evidence as to why that is true. So once you've done that, and you want to give your brain as much evidence as possible, and this is like a continual process, then you can move on to let's reframe the I'm not successful belief into something that feels at least somewhat true to you. Because that's the problem with affirmations, is sometimes people will try to say affirmations that they just don't believe, and it doesn't work because there's no emotion involved. It feels like you're lying to yourself. So let's look at how can we reframe it to something that is true for you. And you're going to know by like trying on the beliefs and see, okay, does this feel good for me? If I am a successful person doesn't feel completely true for you yet, let's use a transition belief. It could be, I'm in the process of realizing that I'm a successful person. So that way, if that feels true to you, all right, let's focus on that. So that every time the thought I'm not successful comes up, well, now you know what to replace it with.
Time for a short advertisement break. Are you a counsellor, dietitian, therapist, nutritionist, personal trainer, or other mental health professional? Are you seeing increasing numbers of your clients struggling with eating disorders and disordered eating? And are you keen to learn skills and strategies and build confidence in working with your clients who struggle with these issues? We know that increasing numbers of people are struggling with eating disorders, and we know that 85% of people with eating disorders are not underweight, and this means that many eating disorder symptoms are hidden. The Good Childhood Report in 2021 highlights appearance as a leading cause of unhappiness among young people and indicates that appearance concerns are increasing year upon year. So join my Eating Disorders Training Day on Zoom, face-to-face or self-paced online. It will give you a really good understanding about the different types of eating disorders, including anorexia, bulimia, binge eating disorder and OSFED, with an introduction to RFED and neurodiversity and eating disorders. You'll explore typical causes of eating disorders and understand how to create a psychological formulation for your client, and this will be brought to you by relating to client examples. I will take you through them, my specific knowledge, skills and techniques, which can be used when supporting clients with eating disorders. You will get a full comprehensive training manual and access to the recording of the training afterwards and a full online version of the course. If you want to sign up, please go to the eatingdisordertherapist.co.uk, and you might also be interested in my body image training for professionals too.
Oh, no, really, really helpful, Sabrina. I think just some great kind of practical tips that the listeners can just take straight on board, really, and have a go with.
Yes, I hope so.
Yeah. And just showing how crucial, isn't it? Like, we really need to be aligned with our values. We need to really address these underlying beliefs. Otherwise, we're not going to make these changes that are so important. But there is more.
Absolutely. there is more. Absolutely. There is more. And I'll say last thing on your beliefs is that if you think about the life that you want to create, like most people have this like idealistic life that they want to create. Even if you change your behaviors, but you still hate yourself and you still speak negatively to yourself and you still think that you're a failure, like, is that even going to be a life that you enjoy? Most people have a goal, not because of the goal itself, but because of how they think it's going to make them feel. Even if you're doing something different, but you feel the same, then that's not a success for you. And you're going to constantly be chasing this like elusive happiness that's in your future. So this work is so important, not just to change your behaviors, but to actually enjoy your life and feel good in your mind, feel good in your body. Now we've got environment, behaviors, skills, values, and beliefs. And the next level is your identity. And this can also be called your ego, the concept that you have of yourself. And think of this as like anything you say after I am. It could be identities like I am a mother. I'm personally not a mother, but I know that a lot of women, the second that they have kids, it's like a shift in their identity. You are now a mother. It could be your job. I am a business owner. I am a nurse. I am a sister. I'm a good friend. I'm a bad friend. And it could also be I am a failure. I am a leader. I am bad at blank. So anything that you believe about yourself, the role that you play, your personal goals, so all the things that you want to accomplish in life, your core beliefs. So I am the person who fill in the blank. And this is really where you want to do the heavy lifting and where a lot of the coaching takes place, because your identity is going to shape your beliefs and your values. I know that if we take the mother example, when you're a mother, then just naturally your beliefs and your values start to change. But your values and your beliefs don't change before you change your identity. Your identity changes and then everything else changes as well. So this is where you want to focus on what is truly my identity. Because if you have an identity of I'm an emotional eater, for example, for you to stop the behaviors of the emotional eater's behaviors, there's going to be like a lack of continuity. You're going to feel this dissonance in, oh, well, I see myself as this way, but my behaviors are now this way. And I'll use an example. I was a big reader growing up, a lot of Harry Potter, a lot of fiction books. And then I stopped for a really long time. I was in school, I was super busy. And then as an adult, I remember thinking, I want to start reading again. but I did not see myself as a reader. There's some people who see themselves as avid readers. I did not see myself as a reader. I knew if I wanted to become consistent with reading, I couldn't just be like, I'm going to read this book, right? And I'm just going to start reading. I really needed to start seeing myself as a reader. I am someone who reads consistently. And when I started doing that, it was these small micro actions that I took. It started with, I'm going to read one page every day. And that is something that I can be consistent with no matter what. If I'm busy, if it's a late night, I know that I can read one page every day. And every time I would do that after I was done, it goes hand in hand. Your actions will reinforce your identity, and your identity is going to encourage those actions. So I would be done my book and I'd be like, look at me, I'm a reader. So your identity is really going to help reinforce those behaviors.
Yeah, and it makes sense. I think it's challenging, isn't it, for people sometimes when they are in recovery from an eating disorder, disordered eating, because of, although they want rid of the eating disorder, sometimes there can be an appeal of the sick identity and what that means. And I think that's quite important to uncover sometimes, isn't it?
Yes. I know for me, one of the big barriers, I had orthorexia. And so one of the big barriers that I was facing is I had the identity of the healthy friend, the one who's always at the gym, the one who doesn't eat the quote unquote junk food, the one who's always eating healthy. And I thought that everyone else saw me that way, which is obviously not true. No one cared about that. But in my mind, it was part of my identity. The thought of being someone who even allowed myself to gain weight, allowed myself to eat more fun foods in front of people, that felt very confronting to me, because the healthy girl, the quote unquote fitness obsessed girl, doesn't do that. So looking at what your identity is on a subconscious level is going to be really important, because you're going to notice the discomfort if you're doing something that's out of line with it.
And what advice would you give to people? Like, how did you yourself deal with that shift in identity?
One of the things that you can do is to look at, oftentimes we think that our identity, the reason that we hold on to things is because we think there's a benefit to it. There's a benefit and there's a consequence to everything, or else we wouldn't do it. Look at, what do you think is the benefit from it? And for me, I thought people like me more. People are impressed by me. This is why people keep me around. So look at what your mind thinks as the benefit, like shine some light on it. And what you might see is that there's not much truth to it. Sometimes there is some truth to it, but oftentimes there isn't. And then on the flip side, let's look at the consequence of it. Most people only change when it feels bad enough, when the pain of staying the same is more painful than the pain of change. So if you can actually trigger some of that pain to see, what is it costing me to hold on to this identity of the sick person, then you can bring, again, shine some light on what's really happening right now. And the next thing that I really like to do is you want to bring a sense of safety around changing your identity. Because oftentimes people don't do it because they don't feel safe doing it. They don't even know what that's going to look like. So you can even write down, what is it going to look like when I'm no longer the identity of the sick person? And give your brain the mental image of, this is where we're going. And where we're going is not as scary as you think that it is. Because a lot of it is fear, but if you can shed some light on, this is where we're going, and it's not that scary, then you can bring a sense of safety around the change. Make sense?
Yeah, no, it really, really does. And how might you do that as well, kind of to bring about that kind of feeling of safety for someone? How might you kind of evoke it, I guess?
Yeah. What safety means for someone is going to be really different from one person to another based on like your nervous system response. So if there is a feeling of lack of safety around how people might respond to you, then you can bring some awareness to, what could I actually do for myself to feel safe around this change? And it could be making a plan of, these are the people who I really trust, who I feel safe and comfortable around. And I'm going to lean on them. I'm going to open up to them. I'm going to really use them as my support system during this. So that could be your sense of safety. It could also be looking at, what are you afraid to lose? What is your brain creating around what you might lose if you change this identity? And I know for me, I had this when it came to growing my business. I had this belief that if I were to grow more and if I were to make more money, people would leave me, which not founded in any evidence, but that's what my brain was doing. So for me to create a sense of safety around that, I actually had to have conversations with the people I thought would leave me, wouldn't care about me, would not want me in their life anymore. One of them being my partner, and just explaining how I was feeling and being able to communicate things that feel really scary for you and have it be responded to with comfort and with love and with acceptance. What it does is you bring the scary feeling and then you mix it with those comforting, safe feelings so that you can bring that into your body.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Thank you for talking us through that. Okay, so there's one more level of the pyramid.
Yes, this is the level of purpose, mission, spirituality. There's different words for it, but this is where you transcend yourself and you start thinking about the bigger picture of how this might affect others. For example, I know that when I started my business and I started helping other people, I've had people ask me in the past, like, are you ever scared that you're going to fall back into your disordered eating? Are you ever scared about that? And I say, without a shadow of a doubt, no. The change is so permanent for me because I've changed at every level. And most importantly, I've changed at a bigger scale level, that this is not just about me. This is about other people. And it doesn't have to be this like big grand mission that you have, but when you can find your own life purpose, and it could be your family, like your close surrounding, and it's no longer just about you. And I'm sure that you do this work as well as like finding your why, your like deepest why, not your surface level why, then that's going to affect your identity, your values, your beliefs, and everything down that ladder.
Yeah, I know. So helpful. I mean, I'm just so with you. I think it just resonates in the same way that when you really talk about your business and your purpose, just I think filtering my own life as well through this model, it's just crystal clear to me why I was very, very purpose driven actually from very early on. And I think that was a savior, actually. It was my desire to kind of give back and make a difference. Kind of was bigger than the disorder.
Absolutely.
But I like what you're saying as well. Like, I guess you and we are mission, purpose-led people, aren't we? But I think it doesn't have to look like our lives, does it? There's many ways someone can be living out their purpose in multiple ways. It doesn't have to be some like big project where you're kind of changing the world.
Yes, it could be on whatever scale is your scale. And like what I really focus on with my clients is helping them tap into their intuition, because your intuition, your inner voice, that part of you that knows what your path is, that's the one that's going to know what drives you. What drives me is not going to be what drives my neighbor or my partner or you. So really tap into like what feels good for me.
Yeah, no, fantastic. That has been incredibly helpful, Sabrina. I think you've explained that really clearly, and I found it very helpful to listen to it.
Good. I'm so happy to hear that.
Is there anything you want to add about the model, I guess? Anything perhaps we've missed out or any little nuance?
I would say that what could be helpful for your listeners is you might be wondering like, okay, what do I do with this information? So this is what I've had some of my clients do is draw out this pyramid. Draw out 2 of them. And the first one, I want you to write down your current or your past, because usually your past and your current are intertwined. your past/current pyramid. What is your current environment? Your job, your relationship, your money, the quality of your body, whatever it might be. And then your current behaviors, values, skills, all of that. And then look at and take some time with this, write both the good, the bad. I don't see anything as good and bad, but in terms of simplicity, write down the good and the bad. And then what you can do is circle the things that you're like, this we're not doing anymore. This is one of those things that I'm going to bring awareness to change. And then I want you to do a second one and then write down your future, best, authentic, highest self. What is her identity? What is her purpose? What's her values? How does she think about herself? What's her beliefs? And then write it down. So now you're going to have this like very clear roadmap of where I am and where I'm going. And please don't try to change it all at once. I really recommend that you start at the top. Start at the top and see what is my mission, what's my identity, what are my beliefs. This is where the meat is really going to be. And some people don't love to hear that because you can't see it. It's not like this immediate result in a change of your behavior. But when you can focus on that, what you're going to see is that the behaviors are going to change a lot more swiftly, and they're going to feel like it's part of who you are now, not just something that you do.
Yeah, no, so helpful. Yeah, well, I think there'll be a lot of listeners drawing out their pyramids. Yeah.
Get those pens and papers out.
Okay, well, fantastic. Well, Sabrina, we'll definitely make sure that we've got a link in the show notes so people can actually have that kind of visual. Although I have to say, I think you've explained it really, really clearly, actually. But I think it's always nice to have the visual as well. So where can people find you if they want to get in touch with you, work with you, etc.?
Yeah, so if they want to get in touch with me in terms of working with me, they can go to sabrinamagnan.com/academy. So that is my Food Freedom Academy program. You'll have the opportunity to book a call with me, talk with me, and see if you're a right fit for the program. And then if you want some free resources, I also have a podcast, which you have been on, the Live Unrestricted podcast. And you can also find me on Instagram at Sabrina Magnan Health, and send me a DM. Let me know that you heard me on this podcast. I would love to connect with some of your listeners and get to chat with them.
Oh, fantastic. Well, thank you so much, Sabrina, for coming on the podcast. I think so much value in that episode. And I think you explained it just beautifully. And I'm sure there'll be a lot of people just really sort of having a lot of aha moments and taking things away. And I'm sure there'll be people in touch. So thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
So I hope you enjoyed this conversation just as much as I did. Do go and check out all of Sabrina's info in the show notes. If you're not following me already on Instagram, do seek me out, the Eating Disorder Therapist _. You might also want to follow me on Substack, where I'm now writing regularly about all things eating disorders and disordered eating and body image. If you enjoy this podcast, I would be so grateful if you'd follow, rate and review, as it helps it reach so many more listeners. Thank you so much for listening today, and I look forward to sharing another podcast episode with you very soon.